So this unit's on Korea, and the first question is, briefly explain the South Korean screen quota system and why the government has enacted protective measures to limit foreign films. So the Japanese occupied, through colonial force and power, the Korean Peninsula from around 1910 until around 1945, when the U.S. military government took over, and that's when Hollywood came to what was previously a market that was primarily for Japanese propaganda films and that didn't allow Korean language films at all. So that familiarized audiences with the Hollywood style. Then the Korean War happened, and that was until about 1953, and then that's when everything was decimated. All the films from before then are completely gone. There's none in their original forms. There's some that are cut up in pieces, and they have little pieces of them, but they don't have all of the film. And when the U.S. involved themselves farther in Korea and South Korea, they gave them a bunch of new technology from like Hollywood-style technology, American-style technology, so which made them a unique market in comparison to the rest of the film industries in Asia that were working with older equipment. And then in the 60s, a dictatorship, military dictatorship, took over, and they created the motion picture law, which included protectionist measures, such as a screen quota system, which made it so that theaters had to show films for a certain number of times in a row, like days in a row, that were Korean language films that were made by Koreans that were from Korea, and that was for 146 days. Each film had to be created. Not created. Sorry, it had to be allowed viewable on the screens. The rest of the screen time could be any foreign film, and they did this because they wanted to grow the Korean artistic style and have their own cinema and have their own language cinema, and especially to transmit cultural values, because it was for so long not allowed at all. So it does make sense that they would put into place something to encourage the creation of Korean art when Korean art wasn't even allowed to exist under Japanese rule, and under American rule it was heavily stifled by American preferences. So do you agree or disagree with this measure? So some people say it's not necessarily necessary because like the films don't have to depict Korean life or transmit Korean cultural values, but if you think of the film theory of auteur that we learned about in French New Wave, the author and also the critical theory concept of the personal political, or the critical theory concept of standpoint theory, we are all coming from a specific place that has to do with how we were raised, the culture that we were raised in, whether that's a subculture too, and that or a counterculture, and we transmit those values in everything that we do. So it is inherently true that a Korean person transmits Korean cultural values by creating a film in Korea or in Korean language or through their lens as a Korean person. Every artist is doing that no matter what they're doing, and to say that it's not true is just a little bit navel-gazing and inaccurate. It's just inaccurate. And then the quota system also might encourage artistic expression in the way that we might think of like independent films in the United States being independently funded separately from like the mainstream, as being able to increase like artistic expression and experimentation. The way that the government functions and the way that the law functions kind of enables that to happen naturally and encourages that in a way. And it's subsidies, like that is an option that would be great, maybe even in addition to the film quota system, because that would be nice. But subsidies might go to productions that already have a lot of foundation that might be encouraged to create just for the sake of money, and we have criticism of that in the United States too, like producing for a global audience to get the most money possible might happen too if there was a subsidy system that was not the same as the current subsidy system. So the next question is, please explain the difference in how South Korean films and American films are funded. How have these differences in funding affected the quality of films from both countries? So chaebols used to, in the 90s, create films. Like they would fund the films. It would be one company would fund everything from distribution, production, like everything, all at one company. So Marriage Story was the first one that did that, and it was like Samsung and Hyundai were involved. Excuse me. And now there is government funding, and government funding helps productions at any point in time in their like creation. So maybe they had all the money to create the film, they edited the film, but they don't have the money to distribute the film yet. And that fell through, or like funding just got moved around, and there's not enough. They can apply to the government for loans to not loans, to grants to help them with that part. Okay, so the first film that I'm going to review, I have two films that I'm reviewing: Parasite, and then spring, summer, winter, fall, spring. So Parasite was released in 2019 directed by Bong Joon-ho, and basically the summary, one sentence: a working class family finds their employment with an upper class family and does so by dubious means, and a bunch of really crazy stuff happens and unfolds that leads to the death of several people and a rather bleak ending. I think the protagonist of the film, in some ways, is the son. His English name is Kevin. In some ways, he is the protagonist because he's one of the main characters that helps him initiate all this different action, and at the end, he's the last one that speaks as well. His goal is just to keep his family afloat, and he is not so successful in achieving that goal. I think the antagonist of the film is wealth privilege itself, because I don't think it's necessarily an individual character, because there's a lot of antagonists. The whole film could be, if you conceptualize it in a certain way, full of just anti-heroes, or antagonists, or people that are not very easy to sympathize with, across the board. And I actually found myself sympathizing more with the wealthy family than I thought I would, because of my class background and my class analysis. I didn't think that I would be sympathetic as much towards the wealthy family, but I was. But yeah, I think the antagonist is wealth privilege, and this idea that, like, I don't know, and I think the goal of wealth privilege is to keep certain people stifled and down, to keep a certain social order in place, so that the wealthy keep getting wealthier and the poor keep getting poorer. And in that way, I think that the film showed them achieving their goal, them being the entity that is wealth privilege. Describe the Kim family apartment and its physical location. How is this location of the apartment aligned with the socioeconomic standing? How is the gentleman peeing outside the window foreshadow the events later in the film? So it's a half above ground, half below ground, like half basement dwelling. It's at the very bottom of the valley, which you could kind of tell at the beginning, like, that is the case. But then when the river floods, you see that, like, they flood because they have to go all the way from the top of the city, like on the valley's height, the highest hill, mountainside, whatever, the mountainside, and then they go down all these steps this whole way down to get to their apartment that is flooded. And then the man being outside kind of, foreshadows the fact that, like, sewage floods their apartment later, I guess you could say. So describe the Park family home and its physical location. Where is it located in comparison to the Kim family apartment? What is the director saying with its geographic difference? It is atop a hill. It is a compound. It is a fortress of sorts. It's off a residential street rather than off an alleyway, like the like the Kim family. There's garden topiary surrounding the compound, so they don't see the walls of the compound, they just see greenery. And they're kind of like up high, they're on high, they're like up, which is very aligned with their class standing, which is extremely high upper class. So the father is an architect. They're set apart. List the members of the Kim family and describe how each of them tricked their way into working for the parks. List the members of the Park family and describe each of them. I'm going to do this together because it's kind of like it feeds into each other. So, Sung Kang-ho plays Kim Ki-taek, the dad. Choi Woo-sik plays Kevin. Kim Ki-woo, Kevin. And that's the son. Park So-dam plays Kim Ki-jung, or Jessica, the daughter. Jang Hye-in plays Chung-suk, or the mother of the Kim family. That was all the Kim family. Lee Soon-kyun plays Park Dong-ik, the father of the Park family, the architect. Choi Yo-seong plays Choi Young-yo, or the Park family mother. Lee Jung-in plays Guk Moon-wang, the housekeeper for the parks, the original one. And then Jung Ji-so plays Dae, the daughter of the parks. And then Jung Young-jun plays Park Da-sung, or the son of the wealthy family. And then there's also The husband of the housekeeper, played by Park Myung-hoon, who is Oh Jun-sai, is his character's name. And there's like a chauffeur that's before the father takes over. And a family friend at the very beginning, and a pizza parlor owner. I think those are the main characters that have lines. So the son Kevin, Kiwoo, he gets a visit from his friend that's about to travel abroad. And his friend's about to travel abroad, but he's a tutor for a wealthy family's daughter, who is, I think, a sophomore in high school. And he's about college age. He's about to leave. He must be a senior in high school, is the implication. And then Kevin, I don't know if it's the summertime or not, but Kevin seems to have he's not in college, so I think he's supposed to be college age, like maybe a freshman in college. So he asks him to take over the job and just to pretend that he's a college student and just like forge some papers or figure it out, just lie. And so Jessica, his sister, her character's name is also, one moment, let me find that. I think it's important to include that. Ki-jung. She helps him create like the fake documents at a cyber cafe. So then he goes and he talks to Yeon-gyo, which is the mother of Dae-gi, the daughter, and he like basically finesses her and like makes it clear that like he's really good at his job because he gives like the daughter this speech about how a test is like going through the jungle, and it's like this theater that the mother eats up and loves, and like she hires him. Then she's talking about how there's no art teacher for her son, Da-sung, and Da-sung has high turnover with his art teachers because he's a very rambunctious boy. So so Kevin kind of like angles for his sister to maybe take over that role. And then so his sister is really, really great at conning people. She's a very good con artist. So she kind of like manipulates the situation and makes it so that she seems very serious and very like professional and very like not only an art teacher but also a therapist, and angles for this psychological background that she doesn't have, and like kind of lays it on really thick for the mother, and the mother like needs somebody to talk to take care of her son. So she like eats it up and she believes her, and like why would she not, you know? She sells it really good, and then his sister asks, do you want to open up the black box of your child's mind? And so she's like, yes, I want that, because like what upper class mother wouldn't want to know exactly what's going on in her child's mind. So she angles for like a lot of sessions a week, like lots of high pay, so she's in high demand, so she demands high pay. That's how his sister gets in. On the way home from her first lesson, which we find out that the daughter Dai, she has a crush on the son Kevin, and so he knows that that's kind of what he has to give her to like keep his job. So there's like kind of like yes, he's preying on somebody that's younger, but also like if he doesn't, then like will she try to get him fired? Like there's kind of like a little bit of that going on, and I think it's like Romeo and Juliet laws. They don't seem that far apart in age, but there is a questionable age difference. But anyways, on the way back home, his sister, the chauffeur hits on her pretty hard, and she keeps on like she dodges it several times and has to be like, I have a boyfriend, and then she ends up deciding that she's gonna get back at him by angling to get him fired so that her dad can be in charge of the chauffeur position. So she hides her panties in the car, hoping that the father will find them, and then the father fires him because he thinks like maybe drugs were involved too, and his wife is like, oh yeah, we gotta get rid of him, and then they pretend that she says so he lies, and they're not siblings to the Park family, like the Kim family children, the daughter and the son Kevin and Jessica. They don't know they're related. They think that they're separate people, that like he just learned of her from somebody else, and then she tells them that her father's brother's chauffeur is now needing new employment, which is like her uncle. So it's also funny how she like delineates it separately like that to like try to obfuscate. And so eventually they get the father in, and he's the chauffeur now. And then the thing that ruins it all, that destroys it all, is they reach too far and they try to involve their kind of dead weight mother and try to get her to be the housekeeper. When the housekeeper was the housekeeper from before the Park family even like lived there, from the house, the people that lived there before. And she has a peach allergy, so they involve like peaches and pretend that she has tuberculosis, and like they end up firing her. And then their mother, who cannot carry the weight, is in charge of the household, like a huge household, and like several people's very like neurotic, specific necessities for like her job. And that's kind of the beginning of the end. Her incompetence is kind of the beginning of the end. And they're overreaching as well. So how do the kids learn of the man living in the basement? How does the discovery trigger events in the film? So the Park family goes away for a camping trip, so they all like kind of live it up and enjoy the house. And then the old housekeeper shows up on their doorstep in the rain and is like, "I need to get in. I left something in the basement." And it turns out it's her husband, who's been living in the basement for like 4 years, and it's really creepy. She also cuts the CCTV wire, so like the security camera, and that's how they find out. And it is a series of chaotic and unfortunate events that follows. They tend to like send a video to the family of the other family, like the former housekeeper does that. It doesn't end up working, but it could have. And then why does K-Tech stab Mr. Park? Was he justified? He cares. So K-Tech, the architect, cares more about the smell of the man that's dying in front of him than he does about the fact that there's a man dying in front of him, because he's just trying to get his car keys. And I think that's what Mr. Park, not K-Tech. K-Tech is the working class family's father. Mr. Park is the one that like doesn't even care. It cares more about the smell of the man than the fact that he's dying in front of him on top of his car keys. He just wants the car keys. And K-Tech is like, this is enough of that, and he's just had enough, and he stabs him. And no, it wasn't justified, but like it's. You see the events leading up to that as like he is being worn thin. He has kind of an anger issue problem too, it seems, that he keeps stifled, which you see come out only one at a time in the show. In your opinion, who's the parasite of the film? Explain. I think the social caste system that leads to like wild behavior on the part of the people that are trying to survive, and the wild behavior on the part of the people that are like so wealthy and so out of touch that they don't care that other people are dying around them or in front of them. And just kind of going cluelessly through the motions of like their upper class privileged existence. I think that is the parasite. The parasite is the caste system is in general that creates less humanity in each of us. And I think also in the Asian context, at least in terms of China, I'm a cinephile. I learned Mandarin and I studied Mandarin in China specifically for 3 months when I was in college before this. And in China, there's a one-child policy, and so one person is responsible for both their parents' well-being, because there's no government system for that, and then each of their grandparents as well. So there's 6 people they have to take care of. And there's a lot of like filial piety in Asian culture, so I think there's a lot of like weight that's on the shoulders of the children of Asian people to like take care of like all these different people in their family and all these different elders. And sometimes those elders don't carry their weight. Like if the mother wouldn't have been involved, and if the father wouldn't have been involved, and if they wouldn't have tried to like take away somebody else's job to get their parents involved, then they would have been fine. Like the brother and sister could have made a bunch of money and like taking care of the family, but they overreached and they also tried to get their like elders involved, and the elders could not do it. Okay. So the ending of the film. So Kevin shares this like plan after he learns that his father is in the basement because of Morse code and the light, and like it's a whole thing. He has this plan of like how he's gonna make a bunch of money, and then he's gonna buy a house, and his dad can come up. All he has to do is like walk up the stairs, and it's a pipe dream. But it's also his parents' idea of heaven, and it's like maybe his father's resting place will be that place. 5 out of 5 is the movie's rating for me. Spring, summer, winter, fall. I picked it because the format of the format was pretty and it's an interesting storytelling device. The summary of the film is it's set across each season that's listed in the title, and it has like 5 characters maybe 6 if you consider the baby a character. So, Oh Young-soo plays an old monk. Seo Jae-kyung, Kim Young-min, and Kim Ki-duk play the boy, young adult, and adult monk, the main character. Ha Yeo-jin plays a girl that he falls in love with, his later wife that he ends up killing. And then Kim Jong-young plays the girl's mother, and then Park Ji-ya plays a baby's mother. Like later on, there's a baby that comes in the winter season of the film. In that act, a baby comes with a mother, and she leaves the baby behind. She ends up dying on the way out of the monastery in the ice. And she's played by Park Ji-ya. The child that plays him is the baby later. The baby's name is Song Min-young. The child that plays him later is Kim Jong-ho. And then there's 2 detectives and that comes out in the autumn season, because they find out that he killed his wife, and that's Ji Dae-yeon and Choi Min. So there's like this stuff that happens in the very spring of the show that is like, oh, you know how they say serial killers they like torture animals when they're young? That's what happens with the young boy monk. He tortures a fish, a frog, and then a snake, and then his monastery master, that's what he calls a master, throughout the film he calls him master, teaches him a lesson and like ties a stone to his back and tells him he has to free the animals, and then he has like remorse about it because 2 of them die and 1 of them doesn't. But so it's kind of like, that's disturbing. And then he meets a girl because the girl's there for health reasons during the summer years, which is when he's a young adult. Not years, but the summer season act. When he's a young adult, he meets the girl, and he ends up leaving the monastery to be with her. And then in the autumn season, the older monk sees in the paper that somebody has murdered their wife, and it's him. It's the young monk. So then the young monk comes and tries to like atone there, and like carves a bunch of sutra that is written by the monk into the monastery's grounds. And then he ends up getting taken off by the detectives, and then later returns, it seems, to become in the winter months, to become the new monastery's master, because it's just a 2-person monastery. And then he takes care of a little boy later on that is also cruel to a turtle. So I think the protagonist is traditional Korean Buddhism and monastic life. I don't think it's really the boy because he's kind of a creep, but that's kind of the point, I guess, of the ambiguity of it. I think the antagonist is the cruelty and violence and hatefulness in the heart of man that disrupts harmony and transcendence and forces suffering, which is kind of a Buddhist idea, attachment as well as like forcing suffering. And then I think the overall message of the film is that even holy men are unholy, and that Buddhist principles are hard to uphold and live by even for the monastic type. I like that the most unique aspect of the film is that each act is a different season, told a decade or 2 apart. And I didn't like the most disturbing aspect of the film was the death throughout it. So I think I give it a 4.5 out of 5. It was really beautiful visually, and very simple story to hear. But and I watched it at regular speed too, so it was very slow and very like meditative and very like contemplative, and I liked it. So Korean ambiguity, there's just been a lot of hell on earth for Korean people. So I think moral ambiguity at that point, like how do you survive hell? You survive it by being hellish too. I think there's a lot of room for ambiguity because there's just so much war and violence in the history of Korea. So it doesn't make sense to be rigid in your moral ambiguity, rigid in your morality. So make sense of the moral ambiguity. Is it wrong that he stabs him even though you're kind of satisfied because what the frick is wrong with Mr. Park? Or is it weird that there's a little boy that gets left behind? Should monasteries be accepting children that way, like and taking care of them, and like what are they even teaching them, and what's going on with that, and like there's just like some ambiguity in general. I think more ambiguity is necessary because who decides what's right and wrong exactly? That's like a whole debate. That's a philosophical debate in general. Existential debate. It's a moralistic debate. It's been a debate since it's been a debate pre-Greeks. It's been a debate throughout all of human history. What is right? What is wrong? What is bad? What is good? Some ambiguity is necessary and inevitable. But I do think like just being like, oh, then it's fine is also not okay. So you still have to be negotiating with this idea of morality in order for it to be worth anything, and the ambiguity is only ambiguity if you're actually interrogating what's right and what's wrong. If not, then you're just saying it's right when it could be wrong and wrong when it could be right.